I'd like to start today's assembly by inviting the headmaster to speak to us.
Well, good afternoon. It's been some time since we've met, and it's good to see you again. I'm going to save most of my messaging for our end of term assembly on Friday this week, because we have quite an important guest here today. Other than to say, enjoy the rest of the week. We're at a really busy time, as you know, and the next 3 days are actually really important to everyone here at King's as we lead into a very busy term 3. So good to see you, and I'll again save my message till Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Headmaster. Next up today, I'm delighted to welcome back to the school Old Collegian Grant Sharman, who was a member of Parnell House from 1975 to 1979. Although listed as a member of the House until 1979, Grant's time here was cut short by an accident while playing in the 1977 Intermediate House rugby match against Major House. Up to that point in time, Grant was in the top Form 3 and Form 4 classes. That's the equivalent of our current Year 9 and Year 10 classes. He was an avid rugby player and, I believe, had given serious thought to becoming an Air Force pilot. But instead, he was to become the first and what was destined to be a long-term patient at the newly opened Otara Spinal Unit. The college supported Grant to enable him to complete his secondary education, gaining university entrance, and his housemaster, Mr. Stuart Manners, and his family, along with many in the King's community, have become long-term friends and supporters of Grant. Grant arrived here today in his self-driven modified vehicle, and the first of these was similar to a paddy wagon, not unlike that used by Ironside, a popular TV detective of the time, and this was a gift from the college community. I'm sure Grant will speak to us about his time after King's College, but I know many will have followed the New Zealand Wheel Blacks, and Grant was a member of the team that won bronze at the 2000 Olympics, and he subsequently became that team's coach in 2006. Sport's not the only important part in Grant's life. He's a mouth and foot painter, and the college has several of his paintings, which also feature on the cards that are produced each year for the organisation that gives disabled people the opportunity to become financially independent. In recognition of Grant's perseverance, dedication and skill, the college awarded him the Honours Tie in 1987. So please join with me in welcoming Grant back to the college to speak to us today.
They say you should count to 7 before you start speaking. Headmaster, staff, fellow collegians. 40 years ago, I was sitting somewhere out there in an assembly very similar to today. We may have had a guest speaker, I'm not sure. If we did, I've got no idea what they said. In fact, I can't remember any of the guest speakers for all the time I was here. Now that's not because they were terrible speakers. It's probably because I was a poor listener and just couldn't concentrate. But 40 years ago, unlike probably a lot of you here, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. As was mentioned, I wanted to study hard. I was going to join the Air Force, fly Hercules, see the world, 10, 12 years. Then I was going to join Air New Zealand, fly 747s, make a ridiculous amount of money, retire at 50 with some outstanding toys. As I say that aloud at age 55, it seems slightly shallow and lacking any real character, but trust me, at 15, it was an outstanding plan. Well, 24 hours after that assembly, just out there on number 1, around about the 22, for one split second, my world was going to change. I dived into a ruck, and before you counted 2, I'd broken my neck. And that brilliant plan was out the window. Now, I have to say that I didn't realise, instead of flying aircraft, I would make a living with a brush in my mouth, painting. cards, calendars. I mean, seriously, who sticks a brush in their mouth? I mean, I wasn't any good at art at school. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, but art was strictly my sixth subject. Go figure. As mentioned, I've done a whole bunch of other things, but that's not what I want to talk about today, because I've only got a little bit of time. What I want to say today, and I'm going to use one of the great philosophers of the 20th century, a guy called Forrest Gump, who summed it up really well. Shit happens. I'm not sure if I can say shit on stage. I forgot to ask and I'm too scared to turn around. But suffice to say that things go wrong. And everyone here, something is going to go wrong in your life. Now, there are extremes of it. There's some little stuff and right to the big stuff. And it's going to happen to you. And your plans, if you have them, trust me, they are not going to work out. You're going to hit road bumps along the way. But the good news is you've got a choice. And it's a very simple choice. Option A is do nothing. You can wallow in self-pity, feel sorry, do the blame game, fundamentally waste good oxygen. Or your other option, once you've got over it, is to do something about it. Now, you can't do that on your own. You're going to need people, family, friends, community supporters. And it's okay to have help because no one does it on their own. 40 years ago, I was given 10 years to live. For the first couple of years, it's pretty safe to say I did bugger all when it came to rehabilitation because I wasn't overly incentivated. I just couldn't see the effort in 10 years. But despite being the top class, I was pretty thick. After a couple of years, I realised these blokes have got it wrong. There's a good chance I could live for a long time. And so I better get back in the game. And I did. Along the way, my dear old mum, she'd ring me up and she'd say, look, in the paper, there's this research on spinal cord injury, and there's this, and there's that, and there's something else. And I just didn't have the heart to tell her, Mum, they're never going to fix it. It's just the holy grail of medicine. It's just never going to happen. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was at a big fundraiser and got invited onto the board of an outfit called the Catwalk Trust. I believe you guys did a run recently and the money from that went to it, and we thank you very much. And the purpose of the Catwalk Trust is very simple. To raise stupid amounts of money to invest in research to find a cure. Up until 4 years ago, if you'd asked me, I'd said you're dreaming. But now, it's not an if, it's a when. And that's pretty damn exciting. Now, it won't be some injection and people just get up and run around after an injury. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time, 20, 30, 40% increases. But one day, it won't affect me, but for those who've just had an injury, or those who don't know they're going to have an injury, there is going to be hope and there will be a cure. I'm not going to go on because one of the things I do remember about assemblies is hoping that the speaker would shut up and get off so we could end this and go and do things. But before I do, I just want to summarise. When it goes wrong, and it will, or just prior to that actually, think before you do things, that's the obvious one. But if it does go wrong, you've got a choice. Choose to do something about it. Because each one of you here has the opportunity to live the most incredible lives. You go to an outstanding school that will set you up for life. You have the ability, nay, the responsibility, to change the world. And you can do that whether you're walking or whether you're in a chair. So as you go on, and I know you're keen, your holiday's coming up, look, have fun, enjoy yourselves, and just make the most of your lives. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Thank you so much, Grant. It's great to be able to welcome you back into the college. We're really glad you're here. Thank you too for those inspirational and thought-provoking words and your example. Thank you. Next up today, folks, we are introducing the Little Big Band, who are going to be performing Sing, Sing, Sing by Louis Prima and arranged by Victor Lopez. The soloists are Ben Loades on the clarinet and Charles Cleal on drums, and the band is directed by Mr. Artley. And that's a pretty decent way to end an assembly. School, please stand.